Hi guys. So last time we read, we just got finished hearing about Michael almost getting beat up and using his electric powers to kind of shock his attackers. And now it's the next morning, and his friend Austin has just shown up to his house. So we're going to keep reading, see what happens. Austin pulled in his stomach. He thought my mother was a babe, which made me crazy. Austin was 15 years old and girl crazy, which was unfortunate because he was short, chubby, and a geek, which is pretty much all you need to scare girls our age away. I have no doubt that someday he'll be the CEO of some Fortune 500 company and drive a Ferrari and have girls falling all over themselves to get to him. But he sure didn't now. Thank you, Mrs. Vey, he said. Is Michael ready? Just about. Come on in. He stepped inside, dwarfed by the size of his backpack. Hey, Austin, I said. He looked at my blank eye. Dude, what happened? He looked at my black eye. Dude, what happened? Jack and his friends jumped me. His eyes widened. Did they pants you? They tried. High school, my mother said. You couldn't pay me $1,000,000 to go back. She grabbed her keys and purse. All right, you boys, have a good day. Stay out of trouble. Thank you, Mrs. Vey. See you, Mom. She stepped out the doorway. Oh, Michael, we're doing inventory at the store today, so I'll be late tonight. I'll probably be home around 8. Just make yourself some mac and cheese. No problem. You sure you don't want to ride? Austin almost said something, but I spoke first. We're fine, I said. Okay, see you later. She walked out. Your mom is so hot, Austin said as he sat down at the table. Dude, shut up. She's my mom. He pointed to my face. So what happened? Jack thought I ratted him out to Dahlstrom, so he and his posse jumped me behind the school. Wade, Austin said bitterly, you should have just zapped him. I put my hand over his mouth. Shut up. You know you're not supposed to know. I know, sorry. He looked over at the door. She's gone anyway, he said. His face brightened. Hey, I got the multimeter from my uncle so we can test you. Austin had this idea about measuring how many volts of electricity I could generate, which frankly I was curious about too. Cool. Seriously, dude, I don't know why you hide your power. It's like having a race car you have to leave parked in the garage all the time. Why even have it? You could be the most powerful kid at school. Instead, you get beat up. Well, Jack and his friends won't be bothering us anymore. Austin looked at me in surprise. Did you do it? Yeah. Cool, man. Oops. Sorry. Sorry about the interruption. Okay. Austin looked at me in surprise. Did you do it? Yeah. Cool, man. I wish I had been there to see you hand down the righteous judgment. I took another bite. If you were there, you'd have a black eye too. If Wade didn't pants you first. He frowned at the thought of it. So does your mom know you used it? Yeah. Did she freak? Yeah, but she was cool about it. She worried that someone might find out, but she doesn't want me to get beat up either. They started it. I just finished it. Speaking of, are you going to finish those waffles? There's extra in the kitchen. Cool. My mom made gruel for breakfast. What's gruel? It's punishment. Really, dude, it tastes like wallpaper paste. I think they feed it to the prisoners in Siberian gulags. Why does she make it? Because she ate it when she was a kid. But your mom's waffles, oh baby, the only thing better than how she looks is her cooking. Dude, just stop it. Austin shook his head. I was born in the wrong house. He threw 2 waffles on a plate and brought them over to the table, where he drowned them in a sea of syrup. Did anyone else see you do it? Taylor. Taylor Ridley, the cheerleader? Yeah. What did she do? She just stared. Wow, I wish I had been there. He took a massive bite of waffle, the syrup dribbling down his chin. Did you study for our biology test? A little, in detention. How about you? Don't need to. It's all right here, he pointed to his head. Austin had a 4.0 grade point average only because the scale didn't go higher. If his body matched his brain, he'd be Mr. Universe. Do you have detention today? I have detention for the next 4 weeks unless you can figure out a way to get me out of it. Maybe you should just shock Dahlstrom. Only in my dreams. Just then the front door opened and my mom leaned in. Michael, can you give me a hand? Sure, what's up? Just come outside. Need some help, Mrs. Vey? Austin asked. You stay put, Austin. I need to talk to Michael alone. Austin frowned. I got up and walked outside, shutting the door behind me. What's wrong? I left the car's dome light on all night and the battery's dead. Can you give me a jump? Sure. I followed her out of the building and across the parking lot to our car, a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then she climbed inside and popped the hood. I lifted it the rest of the way up, then grabbed the car battery's terminals. Go ahead, I said. The starter motor clicked until I pulsed, which is what I call what I do, pulse or surge. And the engine fired up. I let go of the battery. My mom raced to the engine for a moment. Then she stuck her head out of the window. Thanks, honey. I shut the hood. Sure. Have a good day. She pulled out of the parking lot as I went back inside. Austin was still at the table finishing his waffles. What was that about? He asked, his mouth full. Car battery was dead. And you started it up? Yeah. That is so cool. At least my electricity is good for something. It's good as jack repellent, Austin said cheerfully. I looked at him and frowned. Stop eating. We're going to be late. He quickly shoved in two more bites, then stood. I threw my pack over my shoulder. Then Austin and I walked the 5 blocks to school. Meridian High School was the 4th school I had been to since we moved to Idaho 5 years earlier. On the first day of high school, my mother had said to me, don't get in trouble and don't hurt anyone, which I'm sure would have sounded ridiculous to anyone who didn't know my secret. I mean, I'm shorter than almost everyone at school, including the girls, and I never started problems except by being small and looking vulnerable. When I was in the 6th grade at Churchill Junior High, a bunch of wrestlers put me in the lunchroom garbage can and rolled me across the cafeteria. It was Chicken a la King Day, and I was covered with rice and yellow gravy with carrots and peas. It took 5 minutes before I couldn't take it anymore, and I went off, as my mother calls it. I wasn't as good at controlling it back then, and one of the boys was taken to the hospital. The faculty and administration went nuts. Teachers questioned me, and the principal and the school police officer searched me. They thought I had a stun gun or taser or something. They went through my coat and pants pockets and even the garbage can, but of course they found nothing. They ended their investigation by concluding that the boys had touched a power cord or something. None of the wrestlers got in trouble for what they had done, and all was forgotten. A few months later, my mom and I moved again. The cheerleader's story. If you've ever had a black eye, you'll know what my day was like. Everyone just stared at me like I was a freak or something. By the end of the day, I was walking with my head down and my eyes partially covered by a copy of the school paper. The Meridian War Whoop. Still, the day wasn't all bad. I didn't see Mr. Dahlstrom once, and there was no sign of Jack or his friends. I figured I had probably scared them off for at least a few days. As I walked into biology, my last class of the day, I noticed Taylor Ridley staring at me. I ignored her gaze and sat down. Hey, she said, are you okay? I didn't look at her. As usual, my tics started. She leaned toward me. Michael? I didn't even know that she knew my name. The tardy bell rang and Mr. Polson began walking up and down the rows of desks, handing out our tests. People, today's test comprises 1/5 of your final grade, so you don't want to rush it. I want complete silence. Ne'er a word. You know the penalty for cheating, so I won't elaborate, except to remind you that it's an automatic F and an unpleasant visit to Mr. Dahlstrom. Is there any other kind? I thought. Mr. Polson walked to the front of the classroom. When you're done with your tests, bring them to me, then go back to your desk and sit quietly. I could see Austin squirming in front of me, happy as a pig in mud. He loved tests. Sometimes, for fun, he'd download them from the internet and quiz himself. Clearly, something was wrong with him. I pulled out my pencil and began. What definition best describes a chromatid? A, protein DNA complex making the chromosome. B, molecules of DNA with specific proteins responsible in eukaryotes for storage and transmission of genetic information. C, 5 kinds of proteins forming complexes with eukaryotic DNA. D, each of a pair of identical DNA molecules after DNA replication joined at the centromere. D, I thought. D. Or is it A? I was mulling over my answer when a folded piece of paper landed on my desk. I unfolded it. How did you do that? I glanced around to see who had thrown it. Taylor was looking at me. I wrote back, "Do what?" I looked up at Polson, who was at his desk reading a book, then threw the note back. Within seconds, the note was on my desk again. "You know, I saw you do something to those boys." I sent her another note. "I didn't do anything." Taylor wrote back, "You can trust me." I was writing another denial when I heard Mr. Polson clear his throat. I looked up. He was standing at the top of my row, staring at me. "Mr. Vey, those notes wouldn't have something to do with the test you're working on." I swallowed. "No, sir." "Then you picked the wrong time to share your feelings with Miss Ridley." I blushed while the class laughed. He walked toward me. I was blinking like crazy. "I think I was quite explicit about the rules. Hand me that note." I looked down at the paper. I couldn't give it to him. If he read it aloud, everyone would know. "Wait," Taylor said. "He didn't do anything." I was the one passing notes. He looked at Taylor, and his expression changed from stern disciplinarian to gentle educator. I think even he had a crush on her. "What did you say, Miss Ridley?" "I wrote the notes, not Michael." He looked at Taylor in disbelief. She was the model student, incapable of such a shameful act. Then, while he was looking at her, Taylor did the strangest thing. She smiled at Mr. Polson with a confident smile, then cocked her head to one side and narrowed her eyes. Suddenly, Mr. Polson looked confused, like a man who had just been awakened from a nap. He blinked several times, then looked at Taylor and smiled. "Excuse me, what was I saying?" "You said we had 40 minutes left on our tests," Taylor said. He rubbed his forehead. "Right. Thank you, Taylor." He turned back toward the class. "Everyone keep at it. You have 40 minutes left." He walked back to his desk while everyone in our class looked back and forth at each other in amazement. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I looked back at Taylor. "You can trust me," she mouthed. It took me the whole class to finish the test. In fact, I ran out of time on the last 3 questions and just randomly circled letters. Austin had finished the whole thing in less than 15 minutes and strutted to the front of the room to turn in his test, unaware that the rest of the class was staring daggers at his back. For the rest of the period, I could hear him sneaking cheese puffs from his backpack. After the bell rang, Austin and I walked out to our lockers. "Man, that test was cake," Austin said. "I can't wait for the next one." "You're a freak," I said. All right, we're going to pause there for today. I'm really enjoying the story. I hope that you guys are too. All right, see you next time.